Hello everybody, welcome to the Ultimate Scouting Show. Thank you guys so much for joining me here. Really excited to do another weekly prediction video here. We are at week 5 now. The season is definitely rolling right along. Let's go ahead and hop right into things. If you haven't already, please subscribe down below, like this video. That kind of stuff helps me out so much. Leave a comment about your thoughts on these games. All that stuff would be much appreciated. Thanks so much. Let's get into it. Part of these weekly predictions, we are going to look back at what I had last week, in week 4 in this case, and kind of see how we did. So straight up, I went 12-4, which is actually really awesome. This is the best I've done out of any week so far this season, so definitely exciting there. Against the spread, I went 10-6. That's a very respectable record. Against the spread this year has been really tough. Now we've kind of inched our way just below 500. So, hoping to continue to get that up above 500 as the season goes on. But, a good week both against the spread and straight up last week. So really exciting there. So let's go ahead, hop into the picks now. On the Thursday night football matchup this week, we have got the Denver Broncos taking on the Indianapolis Colts. This is going to be an interesting matchup here. The Broncos are 3.5-point home favorites in this one. I just think that this is kind of a game that both these offenses are going to be reeling a bit because they're both missing their star running backs. Javonte Williams goes down against the Raiders last week. Turns out he tore up his knee. He is out for the season. Jonathan Taylor, obviously a huge part of that Colts offense. He is hurt as well and has already been declared out of this game with an ankle injury. So I think that Matt Ryan and Russell Wilson are going to have really big roles in this game. I think that both of them have struggled during certain points this season. Russell Wilson's been pretty inconsistent. They just haven't gotten that Broncos offense going very well this year, and Matt Ryan has had some really bad games thus far. I thought the Colts looked better in the second half last week versus the Titans, but they weren't able to put everything together and get the win in the end, and they fall to 1-2-1. This is a really big game for them. From the Broncos' perspective, you sit at 2-2. This is going to be a home game. You've got to win against teams that are struggling in a really competitive AFC West. You've got the Chiefs, the Chargers, the Raiders finally got their first win as well against you. So this is going to be a big matchup for both teams. I'm very curious to see how this one goes. I do have the Broncos winning this one 23-17. That means that they are covering this spread as well. I just think that the Broncos are a little bit better prepared to deal with, moving away from Javonte Williams now that he's hurt. I think the Colts just rely a bit too much on the run game. It's going to really hurt their offense. And I just have a little bit more trust in the Broncos defense at this point. It's probably going to be a bit of a sloppy game. They're going to have to, rely on the passing game a bit more for two run-heavy teams. So this is going to be an interesting one for sure. I do have the Broncos winning this one, though. This week, once again, we've got a London game. Last week, it was the Vikings and the Saints. This week, the Packers versus the Giants. This is going to be an interesting game because we don't know if Daniel Jones or Tyrod Taylor is going to be able to go. If not, Davis Webb is going to be the quarterback for the Giants. That definitely swings this game in the Packers' favor for sure. But the Packers just had to go to overtime with a third-string quarterback last week against New England. So definitely something to monitor there, at least as far as covering the spread. I think that the Packers are going to win this one. I'll reveal that now. I have them winning 24-14 in this game. I do have them covering that spread. And that's a lot due to the uncertainty of the Giants' quarterback position. I think Saquon Barkley has kind of regained his form as one of the top running backs in the NFL. That's for sure. He's been awesome so far this season. And they've been able to run the ball with Daniel Jones. It's been good. And so we'll kind of have to see if they're able to do that with Davis Webb at the helm or whoever is at quarterback. Even if Daniel Jones is healthy, I'm not sure he'll have the mobility that he has in the past couple of games that have really kind of made this offense effective. Kenny Galladay's out again. So we'll kind of have to see what happens. But I am going to go ahead and pick the Packers in this one. I just think that they have a really strong defense. Though Joe Barry hasn't been a great coordinator so far this year, they just have so much talent on that defensive side of the ball against a really bad offense. I think that they're going to have a lot of success, and the Packers offense has shown enough at this point. They're going to be able to run the ball. Rodgers will make some plays here and there. So I do think that they get a win here and cover the spread as well in London. Next up, we have the Buffalo Bills as 14.5-point favorites over the Pittsburgh Steelers. That is a crazy spread. And I think that the Bills are a very good team. I had them ranked number 1 still in my power ranking video. If you haven't seen that yet, go ahead and check it out. I will leave the link in the description. But I have the Bills as my number 1 team. I had the Steelers drop quite a few places as well. Kenny Pickett threw 3 picks in his debut. They weren't all his fault, but still certainly notable. And it's a huge, huge line. Now, I'm curious if this line would have been this big with Mitch Trubisky. I would think so. I don't think Pickett's a downgrade at all. And I understand it's in Buffalo, but this is just a little bit too big of a spread for me. I do think that the Bills win this game. I think that they're way too talented. The Steelers still don't have TJ Watt. They've been really bad on defense without him, quite honestly. And the Steelers offense is not going to be able to take advantage of the Bills defense. I mean, the Bills defense is just too good. That pass rush is awesome. The Steelers have a really bad offensive line. I think that the Bills definitely win this game. 14.5 is a bit too big for me. I'm going to go with a 31-20 victory here for the Bills. I could see them getting that 14 line. It's an NFL game. There's so much parity in this league. I can't bet that big of a spread. So I am going to go with the Bills here, but the Steelers to cover. Next up, we have the Browns as 3.5-point home underdogs to the LA Chargers. The Browns kind of fell off the rails a little bit after a really strong start to the season. They lose to a pretty bad Atlanta team last week. Atlanta just ran the ball all over them last week. It was really interesting to see. And sure, you're going to probably get Myles Garrett back this week. Hopefully Clowney comes back as well. And they may be able to take advantage of a LA Chargers offensive line that's really banged up. Obviously Slater out for the year. So certainly something to watch there with that matchup. But I just think that this Chargers team has too much talent. Justin Herbert's playing pretty well right now as well, even through his injury that I'm sure is still bothering him. I just think that this team has too much firepower offensively. I think that they can contain this Browns rushing offense well enough at least, and just, outscore them basically. I have them winning this game 26-20. I could see the Browns covering the spread for sure, but I am going to go with the Chargers here. I just have a little bit more faith in this team right now. Next up, we have the Minnesota Vikings versus the Chicago Bears. The Vikings have looked much better, quite honestly, than I expected this season offensively. Kevin O'Connell's done a really good job. I think Kirk Cousins has actually done a pretty good job being an efficient quarterback in this offense. I think Justin Jefferson has had some really good moments this season as well. Against the Bears team that, quite honestly, can't get things going at all offensively. The offensive line is absolutely awful. The wide receivers can't get open. Justin Fields isn't hitting those guys even when they are open. It's just not been a good start offensively for the Bears. I think that this Vikings team certainly has enough offensively, and the Bears are injured at corner. Jalen Johnson is continuing to be hurt. You've got Justin Jefferson and Adam Thielen going up against Kyler Gordon, who's really struggled as a rookie, and Kindle Vildor. I'm definitely going to take that. The Bears are one of the worst rush defenses in the NFL. You've got Dalvin Cook, definitely going to take that. I just think that the Vikings match up really well against the Bears, and I have them winning this game pretty handedly, 23-13, definitely covering that spread as well. Next up, we have the New England Patriots taking on the Detroit Lions. The Patriots are 3.5-point home favorites here. I was actually a little bit surprised to see the Patriots favored in this game. Both teams really haven't been super successful this year. They both sit at 1-3, but the Patriots are on their third-string quarterback. And Bailey Zappi played fine last game, but the offense was really, really dumbed down for him. And they're going up against a team that can really put up some serious points in the Lions. I think Jamal Williams, DeAndre Swift, if he's back, they've been awesome this year. This offensive line can really get the run game going. And Jared Goff's been weirdly efficient. So I think that this Lions team, they're the number one scoring offense in the league. I think that they're going to continue to put some points up this week. Now, defensively, they're actually the worst in the league. They've given up tons of points. And I think that is a good thing for the Patriots, but I'm not sure that they're going to be able to take full advantage of this. I actually have the Lions winning this game 28-26. I do imagine it'll be close, but I have the Lions winning and covering that spread there in a game that I expect will probably be pretty close and pretty interesting to watch. The next matchup we have is the Saints versus the Seahawks. The Saints are 5.5-point home favorites in this one. The Seahawks coming off a big win versus the Lions. Their offense went absolutely off. They scored like 48 points. Geno Smith has played legitimately really well, which I am shocked by, but he's outplayed Russell Wilson. That's kind of the joke going around right now because the Seahawks traded Russell Wilson away and so far have upgraded. I don't know that that's going to continue, but legitimately he's played really well. He has a super high completion percentage. He's making good decisions. He's putting the ball where it needs to go. And the Seahawks have the playmakers that they're able to stay in games. Now, their defense is absolutely horrible. It's absolutely awful. And they give up 45 points to the Lions, which the Lions have a good offense, but 45 points. The Saints, on the other hand, coming off the London loss, to the Vikings. The Saints played pretty decently, quite honestly, with all the pieces they were missing. But, no Michael Thomas, no Jameis Winston. All those guys were out. Andy Dalton kind of held the fort down. I'm not sure 100% who's going to start, but I don't know that it really matters. I think they're pretty similar. They play very differently, but I think their impact on the team, whether it's Jameis or Andy, kind of is similar. I do think that the Saints win this game 27-24. I have the Seahawks covering the spread. The Saints are kind of getting in desperation mode now. They've got to start winning some games. They sit at 1-3. The Seahawks, on the other hand, they're 2-2. They're better than I ever expected them to be. And I think the Saints have a little bit more desperation, a little bit more need to win this game. They are coming off of a week where they have to travel back from London. I definitely think that the Seahawks have some advantages in this game, but, they're at least going to be at home this week. I think that they're able to kind of get things going a little bit more, and they do win this game, though I do think that it's going to be closer than 5.5. That's a little bit too big for me. So I will pick the Saints to win this game straight up, but I will take the Seahawks against the spread with the points there. Next up, we have the Jets as 3.5-point underdogs to the visiting Miami Dolphins. The Dolphins will not have Tua in this game. They will have Teddy Bridgewater, which is definitely something to at least note in this game. I honestly do not know that there's a massive difference in these quarterbacks, but definitely good to have that in mind when picking this game here. The Jets, Zach Wilson looked pretty decent, quite honestly, in his debut. I thought the Jets looked a lot more explosive with him at quarterback than Joe Flacco, and I just... you're continuing to take the young quarterback lumps with Zach Wilson, but I think he shows some really good things on tape. I do have the Dolphins winning this game 28-23. I just think that, Jalen Waddle and Tyreek Hill and this offense have been too good to not score some points on this Jets defense, who I don't think is really that awesome. And the Jets are still just trying to figure some things out. I think that the Dolphins are the better team here, and I am going to pick them both straight up and against the spread in this matchup. I do like the Jets, though, and I think that a win here could really kind of propel them to much better heights. I trust McDaniel more than I trust Saleh, and it kind of comes down to that. Next up, we have the Tampa Bay Buccaneers versus the Atlanta Falcons. The Falcons lost Cordarrelle Patterson to injury. You'll have Tyler Algier and Caleb Huntley and Damian Williams, a variety of guys taking that over that workload there. Marcus Mariota only completed like 7 or 8 passes last week. This offense has not gotten Kyle Pitts involved. Drake London has looked good in his opportunities, but I just don't know that this offense has a lot of explosive firepower, and this defense has some rough spots, to say the least. Grady Jarrett has played well. AJ Terrell is a top 5 corner in this league, but going against a Bucs offense that's kind of getting some of their weapons back at least, this is going to be a tough matchup for them. I think the Buccaneers are going to win this game pretty handedly. I have them winning 27-17. I just think that I like Arthur Smith a lot, but this offense is pretty bad, and you take probably the most consistent player, Cordarrelle Patterson, off of it. It's not a good unit at all. I think that we could maybe see Desmond Ridder as early as the second half of this game, maybe next week, but Mariota's got to continue to hit his open targets and make plays, and I don't think he's done that to this point. The Buccaneers, their defense is so good against a really talent-deprived offense. I think they're going to do really, really well, and, this offense, Tom Brady is going to get things going at some point once his weapons get back, and they kind of have, so I'm excited about that. I'm not really concerned about this Falcons pass rush against a beat-up offensive line, so I think they win this one pretty handedly. All right, so now we have the Washington Commanders taking on the Tennessee Titans. And I have been pretty low on the Titans coming into this game. I thought they've played really well the past 2 games, and Titans fans probably will not be happy with this pick. I'll go ahead and reveal it right now. I have the Commanders winning this game 23-20. I don't really think the Commanders are a good team. I had them ranked number 31 in my power ranking video, but when I was digging into this matchup, I think that the Titans' strengths don't match up very well against the Commanders. The Titans really want to run the ball. The Commanders are 6th in the league in DVOA against the run. They've been really good against it. Now, their issue is in the passing game. They're like 30th in DVOA against the pass, but that's Ryan Tannehill throwing to not Treylon Burks, not A.J. Brown. It's Robert Woods and, Chigo Okonkwo at this point. That's their passing offense, which, I don't love the Commanders' defense right now. It's been pretty bad, but I think you can manage against that if you can shut Derrick Henry down. They've got a really good defensive front, in theory. They haven't been great so far this season, but De'Aaron Payne, Jonathan Allen, Montez Sweat, all these guys are good enough to kind of contain Derrick Henry here. And I don't know, I just don't believe in this Titans defense where it really kind of matters. I think the secondary is pretty beat up. Hooker might not play again. You're missing Bud Dupree probably. Harold Landry's out with the injury, obviously. I just think that, where the Commanders are strong offensively, where you've got Jahan Dotson, you've got Terry McLaurin, you've got, some nice pieces in the passing game, I think Carson Wentz will probably not be panicked because when pressure gets in his face, he makes bad decisions. I'm not really too concerned about the Titans' pass rush. And, when the corners are really, really good, Carson Wentz can't make the throws. But I don't think their corners are really, really good. So I just think the Commanders actually match up pretty well in this game. You're also at home. And I think that they maybe win this one. And it's kind of a tough pick for me. I don't think that the Titans are a worse team than the Commanders, but I just kind of get the feeling in this matchup the Commanders are going to take this one 23-20. It's kind of an upset pick for me in this one. Next up, I have the Jaguars versus the Texans. I've kind of picked the Texans to cover most times so far this season. This time, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to take the Jaguars minus 7.5 here, and I have them winning 24-14 in this matchup. I think that this Jags defense has been legitimately pretty good. Trayvon Walker's really good against the run. Devin Lloyd is playing like a top 15 linebacker in the league right now. And you've got some really nice pieces. Tyson Campbell, Andre Sisco. These guys are playing well. And then on the defensive front, you've got some good impact from Roy Robertson Harris and Josh Allen. So they've assembled a pretty good defense, surprisingly. And I think that, you're going to be able to kind of shut down this Texans offense, which relies a lot on the running game, and they're just not very good. And then I think the Jaguars' offense is going to bounce back. Trevor Lawrence had a really bad game in the pouring rain, and I acknowledge that, but he's too good to not bounce back. And I think that this Texans defense is pretty bad. It's really bad against the run. I think James Robinson could have a good game. I just think the Jags kind of match up pretty well against the Texans, and I think they're going to bounce back from a week that they jumped out to a big lead against the Eagles and kind of slowly choked it away. I just think that they've got this one in the bag. And Vegas, as a minus 7.5, they definitely think that the Jags are a good team and that the Texans are not. Next, we have the Panthers as 4.5-point home underdogs to the 49ers. I just, once again, do not believe in the Panthers this season. I don't believe in Baker Mayfield. I don't believe in Matt Rule. I just don't believe in this team much at all. And so, against a team that I've been really high on, they've had their ups and downs, but this defense has been electric. I mean, Nick Bosa was so good last week. And Hufanga is continuing to make plays. I thought that both the corners played well, Charvarius Ward, Emmanuel Mosley. You've still got Fred Warner. That defensive line is awesome. I'm not worried about the Panthers' offense beating that lineup there. And then, I think the Panthers do some good things defensively. I think Phil Snow is a good coordinator, but I think that the 49ers are going to be able to get their lumps with Deebo Samuel, with Brandon Ayuk. Jimmy Garoppolo kind of seemed to ease into the scheme now. He's back and he's ready to go. And I think that the 49ers win this one 21-13. Definitely a game I feel pretty confident the 49ers are going to control. Next up, we've got the Rams as 4.5-point favorites to the Cowboys. I think the Cowboys have been underrated throughout this process. I think Cooper Rush has legitimately kept them afloat. Their offense isn't awesome, but there's a chance Dak returns this game. I wouldn't expect that. This is with the expectation that he is not going to play, but I have the Rams winning this game 27-24. So I have the Cowboys covering this spread. I do have the Rams winning straight up though. I just think that this Cowboys defense is so good, and the Rams offensive line has been terrible so far. And Micah Parsons, DeMarcus Lawrence, and this defense have just gotten after quarterbacks. They've made life hell for quarterbacks. And Matthew Stafford has not played well under pressure so far this season. And this team is going to get pressure. With that offensive line and that defensive front, the Cowboys are going to get pressure. Stafford did not cope well with pressure last week. I expect this to be a close game. I wouldn't be surprised to see the Cowboys win this. It all kind of depends on if Cooper Rush and the Cowboys offense is able to move effectively, but I think this Cowboys front is going to give the Rams some fits in this one. Next, we've got the Arizona Cardinals versus the Philadelphia Eagles. The Cardinals are 5.5-point home underdogs in this one, and the Eagles have just been so good. Obviously, the last undefeated team in the NFL, but I just don't think that the Cardinals have shown much this season. And this is kind of an interesting matchup because it's like the two young running quarterbacks that aren't Lamar Jackson that are really exciting. I just think the Eagles have built such a better team around Jalen Hurts than the Cardinals have for Kyler Murray. And I just don't believe in Cliff Kingsbury. I do believe in Nick Sirianni, and I think Shane Steichen's doing a great job calling the plays. I have the Eagles winning this one 31-20, covering that 5.5-point spread, and kind of dominating. I just think that, against a really bad Cardinals defense, they're going to be able to run the ball really easily. I think that A.J. Brown and Dallas Goedert, Devonta Smith are going to have their big plays against the Cardinals. I just don't know that they're going to be able to keep up. I don't think the Cardinals' offensive line's that fantastic, and I think the Eagles' defensive line has been really, really good. You've got some good receivers with Marquise Brown, Rondale Moore, but the Eagles have the corners to match up with them. You've got Darius Slay, you've got James Bradbury, you've got Chauncey Gardner-Johnson. So these guys will be able to match up with what the strengths of this Cardinals team is, and I think that they're gonna have a good game, and I think that they win this one pretty easily. Next up, we have Sunday Night Football here. This is going to be a really, really awesome matchup. I am a Bengals fan, so I'm definitely excited for this game, but I think that the Ravens are coming in, off of two really frustrating losses. You lose to the Dolphins after a big comeback win, and then you lose to the Bills after a big comeback win. And the Ravens and the Bengals have had some beef the past couple of years. And so this is definitely a matchup that I think both teams maybe circled on the calendar a little bit. We're pretty excited for. So definitely going to be a fun one to watch. Lamar Jackson has been an MVP candidate. He's been really, really good for them so far. Mark Andrews has also been really awesome. The defense hasn't been really fantastic against the pass, but Marlon Humphrey had a really bad game against Ja'Marr Chase last year. I'll be curious to see how they kind of match up with T. Higgins, Ja'Marr Chase, and who they put on who, and who they're doubling. But I think that this is going to be a really, really fun matchup. I am going to pick the Ravens here. I'm picking the Bengals to cover the spread. I have the Ravens winning 23-21. I'm not sure on this one. I just think that the Ravens have kind of had this one sort of on the calendar. I think that, Lamar Jackson is not someone that you can contain for a full 4 quarters. And this Bengals defense has really been what the Bengals have relied on to stay in these games. The Bengals offense really hasn't quite been unlocked yet. They're still trying to figure out that run game, how to get Ja'Marr Chase the ball when he's doubled, things like that. So I'm going to pick the Ravens here. I think it's going to be really close, and I don't feel super confident in this pick, but I am going to pick the Ravens for now, 23-21, but the Bengals covering that spread, kind of cover all my bases there. Next up, we have the Chiefs at 7.5-point favorites versus the Raiders, and this is kind of my spread upset of the week, I suppose, where almost everyone, I think, is going to be taking the Chiefs with 7.5 here, but I am going to take the Raiders against the spread here. The Chiefs are probably going to win this game. I have them winning 28-23, so a 5-point game in this one. I don't know. I just think that the Raiders kind of finally got that first win. You're able to exhale, you're able to breathe, and now you're able to go out and play your game. And I think that they match up relatively well with the Chiefs. I think in theory this offense could go toe-to-toe with the Chiefs, and not many teams can. So that's a big compliment to the Raiders. I'm not sure this defense is going to be able to stop Mahomes. I don't know. I just kind of have a gut feeling. It's a division game. Division games are usually a lot closer. I just think that for two teams that I still think are pretty good, the Chiefs are really good, and I think the Raiders are still a pretty good team. I'm going to pick the team with the points here at 7.5. That's just a little bit too big of a margin here. The Raiders were really able to get Josh Jacobs going last week. I think that would be huge. Kind of take the ball out of Mahomes' hands and let your offense retain possession. Let your defense get a breather and hopefully kind of figure out a game plan and make adjustments for whatever Mahomes is doing against them. So thank you guys so much for watching. I really, really appreciate it. If you haven't already, please go ahead and like this video. I would appreciate it so much. And subscribe if you haven't already. We're putting out content just like this on a weekly basis. Really exciting stuff, trying to continue to grow and build this channel as much as possible. I would really, really appreciate it. So thank you guys for watching so much. Have a great rest of your day. Bye.